So I had thought I had seen every single reason to cancel a NYRA card this year, from the fumes from the next door casino forcing a cancellation to the speakers from the car show next door at the casino forcing a cancellation, in addition to all of the weather-related cancellations. And then on Sunday, we saw yet another one, as after the first race, the jockeys who were scheduled to ride that day at Aqueduct basically walked out and just single-handedly terminated the rest of the card. There's a lot of back and forth about what this was about. The jockeys say that there's like a list of grievances that they've had in the past year or so with NYRA management, but the breaking point, the straw that broke the camel's back, was NYRA's management sending the assistant clerk of scales, Brian Pochman, home because they apparently were asking him to manually write the weights in addition to the digital system that normally records them. And this was a bridge too far, and he refused to do it. And NYRA sent him home after the first race, and the jockeys took umbrage with that and said that they were trying to put someone else in charge who would not have been able to do the duties. And, you know, like I said, it did seem like the last straw for them because, you know, individually, this does not seem like something you should strike about and walk out about. But I don't think there's anybody that's blameless here, Nick. And I think that this could have been handled so much better on an off day after the races. And I feel that I sense that you're going to agree with me on this, but I think once again, you know, in addition to the owners, obviously, who, you know, paid for the horses to ship and paid for them to get Lasix and all that, the horse players are the one that suffer. Like we handicapped the card, ready to play pick fives. A lot of people were alive in the pick five after the first leg, and then the card gets torpedoed, and there's never any consideration of us, it feels like. And every time one of these cancellations happens, I feel like there should be a little bit of a mea culpa to the bettors, and we just continue to get stepped on and, you know, rarely thought about. But Nick, I'm curious, as someone who's like on the inside of some of these track management issues that come up, what are your thoughts on the jockey walkout at NYRA?
Yeah, I mean, you referenced the airing of grievances. I wish they had waited for Festivus, right? That would have at least been a dark day, and it would have been a little bit more well-received by the betting public. There was a pick six carryover additionally. Right. And, yeah, I mean, look, what you said is exactly right. The people who end up really you listed all of them, right? The owners, right? The horsemen, the horse players, everybody is affected by a situation like this. And it's important for us to remember we seem like the people, the horse playing community, the ones that offer it the most, that we're all in this together. You know, it's not one group over the other. And quite honestly, and I've interacted with Kendrick. I think Kendrick's a nice guy. His quote was a complete embarrassment in the DRF. I mean, what he said about, you know, we're the show and so on and so forth, I'm paraphrasing, is like, no, buddy, you're not. Right? You guys want to continue to do this. They're going to truck in a new batch of jockeys from a lesser circuit that are going to love riding for the opportunity to make more money. You know, and I feel bad for a guy like Lane Luzzy, who put a post on Twitter yesterday that said, you know, I'm a young guy that just wants to ride, not going to get involved in some of the other stuff that's going on. But there's a lot of guys of that ilk, right, that just want to perform their craft and be able to do so. It feels, Joe, like there's the truth, there's lies, and then everything else, there's somewhere in between about what we've heard on this topic. Brian Pochman is a longtime racing employee, a guy I had the pleasure of meeting years ago when he was working at Lone Star. This is not simply about Brian being unable to manually record weights. There's obviously more to this story. I think we can all let our imagination run wild and perhaps have some kernel of truth in some of what we're saying. But either way, what we all can certainly agree on is leaving and ending the card is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous approach to the scenario. It is not a good solution. And it does show an issue with the interaction between the jockey community and the management there, that this couldn't have been meted out in a little bit more timely manner and a little bit better. Luckily, in the ensuing days, we've seen things get better. And now it looks as if racing will go on Thursday. That pick six carryover will move on to Thursday. But the damage is done, right? We lost the card. And a lot of horses had gotten treated with medication that now that all went by the boards, and then horsemen had to pay fees for shipping and whatnot that, you know, obviously didn't get a chance to do so. And you feel for those people for sure.
Yeah, well, and we're recording this on Wednesday, and it may not come out till Thursday or Friday. Nick is right that at the moment it seems like they're going to ride on Thursday, and yeah, I feel like I'm just going to reiterate the point that I feel like as horse players, we're kind of like the child in the divorce when these things happen. Like, we just kind of get overlooked sometimes between the two warring parties. And again, no acknowledgement whatsoever of the inconvenience to the bettors. And I just think that that's a pattern in this industry that really is turning a lot of people off and, you know, kind of sending some people away as well, just because, you know, like I said, this is not, and I'm not saying these are NYRA's fault, but again, this is not the first ridiculous cancellation that we've had so far this year. We've had a bunch of them. And again, like, this is where it would help to have like a commissioner or at least some kind of PR body in the industry that can answer questions, do a press conference, something or other. Because I remember, because when Dave Grenning tweeted out on Sunday, it was like, well, the jockeys are refusing to ride over myriad issues with NYRA management. Everyone was like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, for hours and hours on end, no one knew what the issue was. And then finally, like, the story comes out later that night with the quotes. And yeah, I agree with you. I like Kendrick a lot, but the idea that like you have to be the star of the show in order to like go ride, I mean, that to me diminishes a lot of other people who make the races go. Like, yes, you guys are a part of the face of the sport. There's a million other people that are responsible for the races being able to be run and for all that handle money to come in. So yeah, I just thought that was a bit of a myopic quote. And I think the issue is, again, like you said, the battle between management and the jockeys, like, this stuff needs to be sorted out on a dark day, or, you know, when racing is off for the holidays. Like, I understand that there have been some things that have built up in the jockeys' minds for why they did this, but just on its face, like, it didn't seem like it rose to that level. Any of the things that they mentioned, like the issue about like not letting the families in the jocks room, I don't know, that might be a liability thing for NYRA if like nobody's watching them and somebody gets hurt. Like, I find it hard to believe, and I'm not taking NYRA's side necessarily in this because I think both parties are at fault. I find it hard to believe that NYRA is like just for fun saying, no more families in the jockeys room, no more kids in the jockeys room. There's got to be a reason why they did that. And I just think there's the breakdown in communication to the point that an entire card almost gets canceled with no notice to the horse players or to the owners. Like, there was a lot of shit that was building up that none of us knew about, Nick. And it seems like these things have to now be, this kind of has to play out in public now. I think that the discussions that are being had between NYRA management and the jockeys, like, people need to be updated. Owners, horse players, people need to be updated on what's happening to make sure this doesn't happen again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and there's probably a limited number of ways to put a positive spin on it because it's a negative situation. And, you know, there's obviously been some circumstances outside of NYRA's control that's led to some of those cancellations. There have probably been some things that were inside NYRA's control as well. And so it feels in a way, Joe, that what I guess bothers me a little bit just as a fan, and you know, I have a good relationship with a lot of people at NYRA, but I'm somebody who's you know, objective about things, that so much is being put on this opening of Belmont, right? It's like it is such a big deal, and it feels like another scenario where you want to make sure everything is sorted out. And I know this is a blip on the radar relative to all the things that are going to go into having Belmont ready, but you know, you can explain away the issues with a car show because it's Aqueduct and there's other things going on at Aqueduct, and you can look at some of the limitations of a facility like Aqueduct with regards to how you have to operate. But those have all got to be buttoned up, right? They've got to be taken care of. The relationship between jockeys and management has to be good. We had our own issues at Sam Houston a few years ago with our turf course, and the guy who was running our racing operation at the time has since moved on to Colonial. Is a very good friend of mine, Frank Hoff. And Frank went into the jockeys room, walked the turf course with the jockeys, had a great level of communication with them. And I said to him all along the way, keep them in the loop, right? There's some veterans in there. They've ridden a long time. They want what you want, which is to be able to ply their trade. We want them obviously doing so. And it ended up working out. It's not always that simple. It sometimes is a little bit more complex. But I'll tell you, Joe, nothing was brought up by anyone that made me believe, oh, yes, you're horribly mistreated. And let's be honest, and I want to be very careful with this. There are a lot of different factions within racing, right? You and I represent one group that basically has no attention paid to it at all because we're horse players. We're expected to just keep showing up. We do so with our dollars over and over. They stack the obstacles for us over and over, higher and higher. They're getting higher and higher by the day. There are a lot of groups that are catered to relatively well. And I would go so far as to say jockeys are one of them, right? And they should be. There's a lot of attention that should be paid to the job that they do. They do a dangerous job. None of us would deny that they do a job where an ambulance follows you around, right? You and I don't do jobs like that. But there are a lot of people out there who have hard jobs as well that aren't as well compensated. We want to make sure we're mindful of making sure they feel comfortable with the job that they're able to do while understanding that they're a key part of a very larger puzzle. And everybody has to be a component part of that puzzle and make it come together. So I'm glad we're doing things like paying attention to jockey mental health and wellness and things like that. We obviously need to make sure that we limit some of the things that are said to them or eradicate altogether the nasty things that are said to them. That's just not really, it's unbecoming of somebody that wants to be part of a game. But at the same time, they need to be expected to do their part, which is work out issues that are going on that can be worked out, such as this, and not make us lose a day of racing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, whenever things like this happen, I always, compare it in my mind to other sports. Like, this would be as if this is like if there was like a Friday night, like marquee NBA game and the players come out for the first quarter and then they stop playing and nobody says anything to the fans specific about why they stopped playing and why they walked off the court. Can you imagine that happening in any other major mainstream sport? Like, this is yet another thing that makes this look like a Mickey Mouse sport. And those things just kind of pile up on top of each other where your core customer, the bettor, is going to get sick of it and continue to feel disrespected. Because it's not just the jockeys walking out. It's the lack of communication to your core customer, I think, that really turns people off. And it's just something that would not be accepted in any other mainstream sport. And, the other thing, too, is like I saw some of the quotes from Terry Meeks, who's supposed to be the head of the Jockeys Guild. And it seemed like he was totally in the dark. Like he had no idea what this was about or why this was happening. And I don't know, maybe you need better representation of it as a jockey if that's supposed to be your leader. And he's given these quotes to Bill Finley saying, like, basically, I don't know why this happened. Like, I don't know. Hopefully you can start racing again. Like, and I don't know. I saw this too with the jockeys, with their defense of Paco Lopez. Like, I didn't think that was necessarily because they love Paco Lopez. I think it was because they feel like they have less than perfect representation and unification in the sport. And that's kind of why they wanted to take that stand. It was also about the whip, I think, in particular. But I don't know, like that was surprising to me, the way they rallied around him. And I think it's maybe because they don't feel like they have the union that they should in this game. And the other thing, and Nick, I'm going to throw this at you just because you mentioned Belmont Park and the kind of putting all the eggs in the new Belmont Park basket. There's a pretty big development this week in New York City with the approval of 3 major like live table game casinos. They're gonna build out the one at Resorts World, which is already there but doesn't have live table games. So they're gonna have it be a full-fledged casino once Aqueduct is gone. Then there's one in like the Bronx where the Trump golf course used to be, and then there's one that's going to be at Citi Field, which is in Flushing, which is not that far from Belmont. Aqueduct is obviously not that far from Belmont. Nick, I'm curious if you had any reaction to that, because that kind of seems like another stumbling block possibly. Belmont's going to get to open, I think, before the other 2, brand new casinos are going to open. Probably going to take a couple of years for that. But that worried me a little bit, Nick, because like you say, they're putting all of their eggs in this Belmont basket, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be an increasing challenge, I think, to attract people out there with so many other gaming options around.
Yeah, it's going to take a creative marketing effort, no doubt about it. I think one of the areas that I've advocated for in terms of how we need to focus a lot of our marketing effort is the game of skill potential to younger people. I think people in their 20s and 30s, and I've done no demographic study. I'm no sociologist by any means, but I've been around a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, especially in the last few years, early 30s. I'm 41 now, so I'm getting old. I don't think they're terribly moved by casinos, Joe. I don't think they have our fathers, mothers mentality towards casinos, if you will. And, I don't think those places are going to be inundated with people that maybe they could become horse players, right? Maybe they could be shown that this is a game that you can learn, and perhaps if we level the playing field a bit in terms of being able to bet it and be successful with it, they can be a little bit more moved by that. They don't strike me necessarily as a generation that's overly enthused by a casino game. Again, this is me just opining. This is not based on any data that I have. 3 casinos in the 5 boroughs, and that's a lot, right? Those are 3 mega places. We have aspirations long term in Texas of maybe having 3 across the state. and we have a lot of people here. But you guys have a lot of people around the boroughs, so it's going to be a challenge, undoubtedly, to get people to come out. Obviously, you'll have a big bounce from the fact that a state-of-the-art facility is being brought in. I think the ability to market to families is going to be huge because there's going to be so much backyard space. And, you and I both know it's a great place to spend an afternoon in the summer. The additional challenge, of course, is that they're not just going to be running there in the summer anymore. They're going to be running there in the winter, where it's a lot harder to get out there with weather and such and whatnot. But I think as long as a coordinated effort for getting the word out that this is a new beginning, a new opportunity, a place that obviously is now adjacent to a major sporting venue in the stadium right next door, US or UBS Arena, which obviously has some appeal as well for hockey fans that might want to come out and watch the races and then go over to the Islanders game. So I'm hopeful that it's going to be done. I'm confident that they're already working on it. And we're looking at it now being less than roughly 9 months away.
Yeah, no, and I can't wait. And I hope you're right that there is like a sustained marketing campaign to get people out to the races, because like you say, this could be a new beginning if it's handled right. I will say anecdotally, the guys in my group chat are pretty into casinos, but that's just one
mine too, but we're all in our 40s, but
yeah. No, true. Yeah, we're thinking about younger people than us. Damn it. But yeah, no, I hope that that's true and that it's kind of an older demographic that's more into casinos. But again, I go back to the point where, just in the era of increasing competition, whether it's casinos, whether it's sports betting, you can't have things like what happened on Sunday at Aqueduct. You just can't. It wouldn't be acceptable in any other form of gambling. But again, the horse players are the last thought of group still somehow in this business. We have not learned that lesson. And, John and I talk about it a lot. Like everybody in this climate, everybody's got to be a steward of the game as a whole. You can't just focus on your slice of the pie 100% of the time. And that's something that's plagued this business for a long time. And I think about the jockeys and I think about NYRA, and I'm not saying that the jockeys don't have some legitimate beefs, but did any of them for a second think of how the horse players would be affected by canceling this card? I find it hard to believe that they did. Like, we get stepped on a lot, and with the casinos and with sports betting around, this is not going to be a good look for us in trying to attract new bettors to the game. And that should be the number one priority for everybody. Everybody in this industry, number one priority should be attracting new customers. We've done a shitty job of it for a long time, and these kind of self-inflicted wounds do not help.
Agreed. Right. I mean, look, there's two groups of people that put money into the game: owners and horse players. Owners and horse players are the ones that put their money in. And it doesn't mean that we're always right or that we're the ones that should singularly be catered to, or the dual group. But it means that we should have a voice. We should have a seat at the table. Owners should as well. If you've bought a horse, you've bought into a horse, you've claimed a horse, whatever it is, you've put money out there. You've probably lost money because it is not generally a money-making endeavor. You've undoubtedly had a ton of fun with it. If you've bet on races, perhaps you've enjoyed it. I've obviously loved it for the last 30 plus years. There are days where it's more frustrating than not, but I'm going to continue to vote with my money, and that matters. And that obviously has to be paid attention to if we're ever going to have any ability to move forward.